Okay, so it seems like obviously Filian is still away on hiatus, and I thought there's some pretty funny posts that I wanted to go through, including some pretty like schizo posts and some theories and stuff. Obviously, schizo posts in the funny way, not the weird way. I thought it was just quite funny because it seems like the Filian kind of fan base or whatever you want to call it has been getting up to some pretty funny stuff while she's away. And again, I think it's just funny, right? And I just kind of wanted to share it with you guys, as well as the fact that obviously we talked about on the Filian subreddit that, while she's been away, they seem to be getting even lewder and lewder as it goes with some of the artwork that is being posted over there, which I also think is quite funny because, of course, it wasn't, fully like that whenever she was around, but I think the more that she's gone, the more people have been posting it, which I think is quite funny. But again, recently there's been this post where it says new info, spoiler, we could just wait her out. Patience can only go so far. And obviously, yeah, this is the kind of meme or like image that they've kind of put up here saying, Gandalf's patience. You will not test my patience, Mistress Filian, and even that has a limit. Obviously, they gotta create like a fake scenario saying, okay, chat, the wait is over. Sorry about that long hiatus. Patience can only go so far, we're finally back and things are getting insane. Even the most patient VTubers has their limits. Welcome back, Filian. So again, they've been making like fake images of like Filian returning, right? And again, I think it is quite funny. That some people are like missing her so much that they're just kind of creating like fake scenarios of her coming back, right? And like thinking up of ways that she would return or what she would say, and I don't know, I think it's pretty interesting, right? But again, there's not been many comments in here. People just said, nice try, Foodie. You say, how is this a spoiler? That misspelling of patience is a good metaphor for this fandom, which is quite funny. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of shows you the state that the fans are in at the moment. It seems like they do miss her quite a bit, and now they're just going at anything they can to try and bring back some semblance. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some like kind of trend that went around that just where people just pretended that she was back, right, when she wasn't. I feel like that would be something that the community would just do straight up. Which I just thought was quite funny. But yeah, as well, we do have other posts though. Obviously, this one's saying Filian's return, a theory, which I thought was pretty funny. And obviously, it said, please don't at me, Kazahara. It said, first off, apologies if this isn't allowed. I just want to give my 2 cents. My theory is as such. Filian will return with a debut on April 17th, as this is the date of her first ever stream in 2021. She also said her debut will be unlike any that we've seen before, teasing her world. As we've seen in the past, she's modeled some of her real-world objects into her stream, like her chair, ladder, punching bag, etc. This leads me to believe that this hiatus is putting in a painstaking amount of time, amount of time it must take to a model to get every inch of her apartment and belongings, and her model is going to be rigged to the point of being able to be interlaced with her fingers without clipping. So I'm sure she probably I'm sure she's probably going pretty hard on merch too. She always wanted to make official merch, but wanted to wait until debut since she had a bit of drama involving the Rindo model. And hey, I might be wrong, but I'm putting too much expectation on it. Whatever the case, I hope the Filian is enjoying her hiatus and comes back soon. Please don't at me, Kazahara, which I thought was quite funny. Or PS, don't at me, Kazahara, which I think is pretty funny. I say, I agree. This is the most likely theory. She took a big break and now has a ton of prep to do before her big debut. The ARG serves as a relatively low maintenance distraction, while our desperation will drastically fuel the eventual hype for our debut. And yeah, I do actually kind of agree with that. I think that, the longer that she's away, as much as a lot of people dislike it and a lot of people, are sad that she's gone, I do think that this has actually brought up a lot of hype for when she actually does return, because, as I said, in the last video, we talked about people like losing hope, right? People were giving up. They weren't like, they didn't want to, I guess that, they didn't want to hold on to anything. But again, I do think that essentially will kind of bring more hype, because now that people have lost hope, now that people think that she's never coming back, where if she does finally come back, which obviously will be the case, it's going to be even better, right? We said Filian is not the kind of content creator who loses relevance after a few months of absence. If anything, absence just makes the main fan base more desperate and the adjacent fan base is more curious. I'm hoping for a Doki Bird level debut in terms of pure hype. which stores copious amounts of copium. So it would be nice to have one like that. With the negativity that came in Doki's return due to Nishi trying to get in a few more jabs. They say, I would say a hard date or deadline is unlikely. There are too many things that could be delayed or go wrong, including that are out of her control, like merch. But also, I think as well, you can set a hard deadline once you know that things are like actually going to pan out the way that you think they will. Obviously, there's going to be delays and things, but I think once you like reach the end of like production and things like that, I think then you can start to think about like an actual solid date, which again might be that date. So hopefully it happens. I said, my theory is that the next pay-per-view, she will attack the world champion with a steel chair. Wait, wrong return. Which obviously, yeah, I think is quite funny. And again, I do think that you know, there's probably something going on in terms of improving like the tracking on like objects and stuff, as they said. And I do think that is something that I think maybe people haven't really considered, right? Some people were saying like, oh, you know, she's making a new VTuber model or whatever. And sure, that's great because of course, you know, she hasn't had a full like debut before. But I do think that at the same time, you know, she does have a lot of like kind of, you know, acrobatic, you know, things that happen on stream, a lot of like object interactability and all of that kind of stuff, which I do think obviously might take a little bit longer than your average VTuber model, which I think, you know, it is fine. You know, I think that's fine. And obviously, that will obviously be a factor into how long this is taking, right? Say, well, we know soon enough if that theory holds true or not. So did she make a post suggesting that she's going to have a debut and a return? I hadn't heard anything like that. I said, yep, she's spoken about it a few times. Said, lol, every month people come up with a new theory about the supposed date and debut. She is gone. Deal with it. The complete lack of communication is a clear sign. Tell me who in their right mind in the online entertainment world would just completely disappear for more than 3 months, which is the online equivalent of being dead in this day and age. If I'm wrong, and the debut comes in 6 months, it needs to be labeled the worst handling of a fandom and expectations since the Mass Effect 3 PR fiasco. So it's not that serious, let us have fun, which obviously, yeah. I don't think it is that serious. And I think as well, they say there's been no communication or like no signs that she is like still around and that she is still doing stuff. I mean, just take a look at the YouTube, right? Obviously, we talked about the fact that she's been removing videos from the channel, or privating videos from the channel, right? And fading her profile picture. She's interacting with the channel, right? And I think that is something that maybe some people miss, because again, I do think that is a big factor as to, you know, saying that she's like kind of still around, right? If she wasn't doing this, then maybe, yeah, I'd be a little bit more concerned. And I'd be like, oh, you know, it seems like she hasn't really communicated with anybody. You know, that might be bad. But, you know, as I said, we've had all of this stuff. We've had the, you know, the profile picture fading. So it seems like she's still engaging with the audience in, you know, obviously a kind of a roundabout way, right? But I do think, obviously, at the end of the day, it does kind of give, you know, a little bit of hope to anybody that, you know, obviously likes Filian and watching her content. Because again, she is still interacting with the channel. It's just maybe not in the same way as uploading a video, right? Or, you know, posting a tweet. It's just in the sense of that she's trying to set up. I'm pretty sure that this is supposed to do the ARG thing. I don't know. But it has been a little while since she has actually removed a video. You know, it's been over 2 weeks since the last one. So again, it is pretty interesting to see, and it seems like her viewership is going up and up and up again, which I think is quite funny, because no matter how much she deletes, it seems like her viewership just keeps on going up. Obviously, they say the daily average is minus 952,000, which is due to the fact of, you know, obviously the removed videos. And in the last 30 days, she lost 28 million views, and obviously that is due to the privated or removed videos, which of course, yeah, does have an effect on the channel. But it'll be interesting to see how she returns, when she returns, and in kind of what manner she returns, because of course there is a lot of different kind of factors at play there. And, you know, there's been a lot of discussion, as I said, about the whole tracking and the different kind of objects and things that could be, you know, included in Filian's kind of stream now, because I do think it is different from like your average VTuber, right? You know, a lot of VTubers, they're sat there, you know, they're streaming, which is totally fine, of course, because, you know, that's their kind of style. But we all know what Filian's style is. It's bouncing across the room, kind of like doing some insane flips and stuff and whatever. So again, I think that is something that maybe she wants to improve on, and that would make the most sense as to what she would want to improve on. So yeah, I don't know if it's the date that this person was saying on this thread or not. Again, that I'm not sure about, but I do think there definitely is a good chance that, you know, a lot of the kind of physical elements of her model and all of that kind of stuff is probably being considered and is probably, you know, one of the reasons why it takes a little bit longer than usual for her to come back. So yeah, that's about all I got for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to GameStop, use my code Kazza, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.